support of Farm Europe, and hosted by a member of the European Parliament, Mr. Paolo De Castro. My name is Elit Siforu. I'm the Director General of GAIA Epichirin, and I have the privilege and the pleasure to moderate today's event. Before I give the floor to our host, Mr. Paolo De Castro, a few practical information. You may follow the event in 5 different languages: English, Italian, Greek, Spanish, and Portuguese. You may choose your preferred language by clicking on the globe that you can see at the bottom of your screen. And please note that for Greek, you have to choose the Japanese box. No need to worry, it will be all Greek and not Japanese to you. During the event, and especially during the Q&A session, you may type your comments and questions in the chat. And may I also inform you that the event will be recorded for the purposes of the LIFE GAIA Sense project. And last but not least, if you wish to post on social media, we encourage you to use our hashtag that you may find very soon in the chat. And now let me give the floor to our host, Mr. Paolo De Castro, distinguished member of the European Parliament, among other former chair of the Agriculture Committee, former Agriculture Minister of Italy. Mr. De Castro, I would like to warmly thank you for accepting to be our host for today's event. And you now have the floor for your initial contribution.
Bene, buongiorno a tutti. Buongiorno Elli, buongiorno a tutti gli amici che vedo collegati. Innanzitutto grazie per l'opportunità di essere con voi questa mattina. Voglio salutare anche i colleghi presenti, Umberto Delgado Rosa, Vasilis Piroglotis e Daniel Azvedo. Lasciatemi ovviamente ringraziare Elli e tutto lo staff di GAIA, salutare Yves Madre, gli organizzatori dell'evento di LIFE GAIA Sense. È un vero piacere per me poter oggi ospitare questo webinar. In un contesto articolato, complesso, determinato non solo dall'emergenza sanitaria e dall'invasione russa in Ucraina, ma anche dai trend di lungo periodo come i cambiamenti climatici, la concorrenza internazionale e l'impegno istituzionale preso con il Green Deal, oggi viene chiesto agli agricoltori europei di vincere una doppia sfida: la sfida della competitività e della sostenibilità. L'innovazione è certamente la risposta per vincere questa sfida, ma il fatto di poterla introdurre e applicare nelle aziende agricole non è così scontato. Esiste infatti una serie di problematiche non risolte, di tipo strutturale, economico, normativo e culturale, che ne ostacola la diffusione. Non solo, incide negativamente anche una sorta di diffidenza della popolazione verso tutto ciò che in ambito agroalimentare è percepito come tecnologico. Lasciatemi contestualizzare brevemente la nostra discussione. Nel 2019 la popolazione mondiale ammontava a 7,7 miliardi di persone, il 54% delle quali concentrata nelle aree urbane. La FAO stima che nel 2050 la popolazione raggiungerà i 9,7 miliardi e che questo incremento richiederà un aumento della produzione di cibo almeno del 60-70% rispetto a quanto prodotto oggi. Il fabbisogno richiesto salirà anche in virtù della crescita dei redditi pro capite e le conseguenti modifiche dei regimi alimentari, in particolare in paesi come la Cina, l'India, la Polonia, il Giappone e anche Stati Uniti. Già nei prossimi 5 anni avremo questi impatti. Produrre più cibo con queste premesse diventa quindi un obiettivo difficile, ma necessario. Questo scenario, di per sé problematico, è aggravato dai cambiamenti climatici, che negli ultimi 40 anni hanno triplicato il numero dei disastri naturali, con evidenti ripercussioni sull'ambiente e sull'agricoltura, e dalla crescente scarsità di terra e di acqua, ovvero dei fattori produttivi di base per l'agricoltura. Insomma, amici, il pianeta ci parla e non possiamo più ignorarlo. Per queste ragioni, progetti come il LIFE GAIA Sense, finanziato dal programma LIFE e implementato dalle cooperative agricole dei paesi mediterranei, Spagna e Grecia, Portogallo, sono un esempio da conoscere e da seguire. E questo progetto dimostra infatti come agricoltori e cooperative agricole abbiano raggiunto con il loro continuo impegno un'equilibrata sostenibilità economica e ambientale, grazie all'innovazione tecnologica e al relativo sostegno offerto dagli strumenti dell'Unione Europea. LIFE GAIA Sense propone un metodo applicato per ottenere benefici equilibrati di sostenibilità ambientale ed economica, ottimizzando il processo decisionale degli agricoltori sull'uso degli input, acqua di irrigazione, fertilizzanti, pesticidi, eccetera, valorizzando o almeno evitando di mettere a rischio la produttività. I risultati mettono in evidenza proprio come la digitalizzazione sia una soluzione che offre una sostenibilità non solo economica, ma anche ambientale. Dunque, questo progetto è un esempio di successo che dimostra la necessità di continuare a sostenere i nostri agricoltori senza penalizzarli, ma accompagnandoli verso una transizione equilibrata. Noi ripetiamo sempre in Commissione Agricoltura che la transizione ecologica si può fare solo se la faremo con gli agricoltori e non contro gli agricoltori. Quindi una transizione equilibrata, equa, ma soprattutto sostenibile, che possa garantire produttività, competitività e resilienza, e che attenzione all'ambiente e al cambiamento climatico centrale. Tutto ciò sarà realizzabile non solo grazie alla nuova politica agricola comune, o meno noi lo auspichiamo, ma anche attraverso altri strumenti di supporto di una transizione verde e digitale. In conclusione, cari amici, produttività, sostenibilità, innovazione e conoscenza dei relativi benefici da parte di agricoltori e consumatori viaggiano sullo stesso binario e puntano al 2050, con la ragionevole speranza di trovare soluzione ai problemi complessi derivanti dall'aumento della popolazione mondiale e dai mutamenti climatici. Per questo il legame tra l'investimento in nuove tecnologie e l'innovazione da parte degli agricoltori appare essere la strategia migliore, considerando lo scenario previsto per i prossimi 30 anni. Dunque serve un cambio di rotta e progetti come quello che presenteremo oggi sarà sempre più cruciale per vincere questa sfida. Grazie a tutti e soprattutto buon lavoro.
Thank you very much, Mr. De Castro. I think that you have perfectly set the scene for today's debate. Now, let me, with the kind permission of Mr. Delgado Rosa, let me make a bit of a change in the order of the speakers on the agenda, since two of our MEPs have to leave a bit earlier. Before introducing this first member of the European Parliament who is here with us, I need to say that we are very pleased and honored that 3 members of the Parliament from the 3 partner countries of the project are here with us today, from Greece, Spain, and Portugal. And let me now introduce from Greece, Mrs. Maria Spiraki, who is a very active member of the Environment and the ITRE Industry, Research and Energy Committee of the European Parliament. Mrs. Spiraki, thank you for accepting our invitation. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. And let me say that I would like to congratulate you for your project. First of all, I would like to start by saying that smart farming and smart agriculture are not only the future, it's, according to my opinion, our sustainable present. Climate smart agriculture and nature-based solutions contribute to global climate governance, climatization of agricultural issues. And during the last decade, as we all remember, this is the center of the global effort, not only to tackle climate change, but also to provide sustainable food solutions to the EU and to the planet. While agricultural concerns remained almost absent from the previous years, from the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate until the Conference of the Parties of Durban in 2011, finally, they have gained much more importance in climate negotiation. A transition to climate-smart agriculture is an obligatory task to ensure food supply for an anticipated 9 billion people by 2050, and this is our duty. In fact, I was one of the initiators of the discussion at COP26 about how can we reduce methane emissions in the agri-sector, due to my capacity as the rapporteur of the EU strategy to reduce methane emissions on behalf of the European Parliament. To respond to protected climate, which include food crisis in the national institutions from the World Bank to the Food and Agriculture Organization, we have launched a global transition to climate-smart agriculture. This comprises a unified governance framework designed to diffuse agriculture methods and technologies that increase the productivity of a given crop, while simultaneously building resilience to climate and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. It is a triple win, allow me to say, approach, the incorporation of intensification, adaptation, and mitigation goals into a single rubric that defines climate and smart agriculture. In that direction, our next step in the EU involves the transformation of reorientation of agricultural systems to support food security under the new realities of climate crisis. Widespread changes in rainfall and temperature patterns threaten agricultural production and increase the vulnerability of people dependent on agriculture, their livelihoods, including most of the world's poor. In addition, climate crisis disrupts food markets, posing population-wide risks to the food supply. Fortunately, threats can be reduced by increasing the adaptive capacity of farmers, as well as increasing the resilience and resource use efficiency in agricultural production systems. That's why I consider that your project is up to date, because it deals with climate-smart agriculture and the exploitation and use of smart technologies to promote coordinated actions by farmers, by researchers, the private sector, the civil society, and us, the policymakers, toward climate-resilient pathways. Additionally, I have to underline the impact of the Russian invasion in Ukraine, something that my colleague has also underlined in his remarks. Ukraine and Russia both play a major role in global food markets. They are net exports of several of the leading cereal crops, and they are dominant exporters of sunflower oil, one of the world's dominant vegetable oils. Unfortunately, the Russian invasion has resulted in a massive and deteriorating food security challenges. And in this regard, it is already significantly disrupted livelihood during the agricultural growing season through physical access constraints and damage to homes, productive assets, agricultural lands, roads, and other civilian infrastructure. The next steps to avoid any further significant shocks should include a greater policy space for more holistic approaches to agriculture that will lead to a balanced and fair green and digital transition for Europeans and for Greek farmers as well, and agricultural cooperatives, especially for our home country Greece, where due to the high fragmentation of clearly, the cooperation has a high added value, and I would like to underline this aspect. Cooperatives can play a catalytic role as entities of effective diffusion of knowledge and innovation among the rural population, and also jointly realize green and digital investments by producers. Therefore, I consider, and now it is more important than ever, to combine the strengths between scientists and farmers as organizations to overcome the general economic crisis, market instability, and of course, climate crisis effect. Concluding, allow me to table some thoughts in a form of essential steps. I think that they are fit and purpose for in your project as well. The development of infrastructure and expertise in digital agriculture and precision agriculture, the development of a complete traceability system of products generated, the development of integrated modulations of circular economy and utilization of byproducts associated with the agricultural and agro-industrial sectors, and the sustainable supply chain and innovative entrepreneurial practices and resolutions made. And last but not least, the public awareness actions and schemes. It includes also how to transfer know-how and training the end users. These all are very important steps. I think these are also necessary steps that can be adapted under the framework of climate smart agriculture. Once again, I would like to congratulate you for your project, and I would like to thank you for the invite. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Spiraki, for being here with us today and for sharing all these elements and thoughts that will be valuable in the discussion, and of course for the deliverables of our project and for our ongoing efforts. Thank you very much. Now, let me hand over to Mrs. Clara Aguilera, one of the most prominent members of the Agriculture Committee of the European Parliament, among others, from Spain, with a thorough agri-cooperative knowledge and background, if I may say. Mrs. Aguilera, thank you for being with us today. The floor is yours.
Muchas gracias. Buenos días a todas las personas que nos estén siguiendo. Un saludo afectuoso a mi colega Spiraki, que ha estado hablando desde la comisión en INVI, y muy especialmente a mi colega y amigo Paolo de Castro, que ha estado presentando la inauguración de esta importante jornada, con el que trabajo habitualmente con grandes coincidencias, que no creáis que es muy habitual, pero incluso con colegas, pero Paolo y yo tenemos visiones parecidas y trabajo y experiencia común. Bien, bueno, quería agradecer la invitación a estar en esta presentación de un importante proyecto, el proyecto LIFE GAIA Sense. Felicitarles por este proyecto y por el trabajo conjunto y la participación conjunta de mis paisanos españoles junto con griegos y portugueses. Sin lugar a dudas, una agricultura que tiene mucho en común, esta agricultura mediterránea, aunque los portugueses también atlántica, pero un entorno mediterráneo que tiene unas características esenciales y a veces diferentes, bueno, con la parte más continental de Europa, con el Báltico, es decir, tiene claras diferencias climáticas, culturales y de diversos ámbitos. Por lo tanto, felicitarles y a los agricultores, a mis paisanos y a los griegos y portugueses que se han sumado a ello. Yo me gustaría destacar en primer lugar los esfuerzos que están realizando los agricultores europeos en ir paso a paso adaptándose, bueno, a una sociedad cambiante y a unas nuevas necesidades. Es decir, los agricultores no han empezado hoy o ayer a esta lucha contra el cambio climático y a tomar medidas de ecologización o también reducción de pesticidas y hacia elementos que tengan un efecto directo en esa lucha contra el cambio climático. Es decir, llevan ya tiempo, en la última década especialmente, ha habido un trabajo muy, muy relevante, un crecimiento de, por un lado, la producción orgánica. Yo tengo que destacar que en mi región, en Andalucía, estamos ya en el 23%, o sea que casi cumplimos ya los objetivos que quiere la Comisión del 25%. No es así en España, pero hay un gran avance en algunas regiones españolas en producción ecológica, pero también en la producción integrada, que ha ido avanzando, o en la lucha biológica. En definitiva, los agricultores no han empezado hoy en esta lucha contra el cambio climático. Sí que ahora se hace, bueno, una exigencia de que aumentemos ese cambio en la agricultura europea. Hay una mayor exigencia social y política y estamos viendo cómo, bueno, las propuestas de la granja a la mesa, que de momento son políticas, hasta que no se trasladen a propuestas legislativas, bueno, pues esto van a ir imponiendo una serie de obligaciones, especialmente reducción de pesticidas, fertilizantes o en sanidad animal, antibióticos o mayor crecimiento de la producción orgánica. Por eso, destacar el esfuerzo de los agricultores por iniciativa propia para lograr una sostenibilidad que tiene que tener 3 pilares y nunca lo olvidemos. Está la social, la económica y la medioambiental. Estamos haciendo grandes esfuerzos, lo hemos hecho con la reforma de la PAC, es decir, para orientar más el pilar medioambiental, pero no podemos olvidar que el social y el económico tienen también una relevancia importantísima. Si uno se cae, si no funcionan el pilar también económico y la competitividad de las explotaciones, no hay futuro. No hay futuro para la agricultura europea. La digitalización es una gran solución que ofrece sostenibilidad económica y medioambiental sin duda y busca un equilibrio. Los agricultores tienen que apoyarse sin duda en ello, en esta digitalización, pero también debemos ayudar a las zonas rurales en las que se encuentran, porque a veces no encontramos redes de digitalización de alta capacidad, como necesita el sector. Por tanto, el sector está haciendo un proceso de digitalización muy importante, pero si en las zonas rurales no tenemos unas redes de alta capacidad para esos instrumentos digitales, costará más trabajo. Es decir, porque en muchos sitios la agricultura es la que genera renta en las zonas rurales. Por lo tanto, ojo, el avance del sector en digitalización es importante. Hay que utilizar la inteligencia artificial en favor de la agricultura, todo lo que es la maquinaria de precisión para la reducción de uso de pesticidas o fertilizantes, son elementos muy importantes. Pero las instituciones públicas tienen que permitir que en las zonas rurales se pueda acceder. Y a veces no es tan fácil. A veces no es, al menos con una red de alta capacidad. Por lo tanto, bien, yo creo que nos ha anunciado la Comisión que en el mes de junio, concretamente el 22 de junio, va a sacar la normativa de la reducción del uso de pesticidas. Ya les digo a ustedes que tengo una gran preocupación. Coincido con mi compañero Paolo en la preocupación sobre qué es lo que nos va a presentar la Comisión y en el momento que se nos presenta, porque no podemos ignorar las circunstancias de la guerra y lo que todo ello está trayendo para la food security. Por lo tanto, nos preocupa esa presentación de la reducción de uso de pesticidas, qué incidencia pueda tener y sobre todo si hay alternativas en paralelo. Porque yo puedo pedir que un sector haga un cambio, una evolución, pero tengo que darle alternativa y tiempo. No puedo decir, hay que reducir un 30, un 20, un 50, da igual el porcentaje si no ofrezco alternativa. La alternativa no es solo producción orgánica, es una alternativa, pero no es la única. Habrá producción orgánica, que es una opción para agricultores, una opción para consumidores, pero no es la única. Habrá agricultura convencional que tendrá que hacer esa reducción de pesticidas, pero necesitamos alternativas. Y nos preocupa que, por ejemplo, la nueva edición genómica, que puede ser una alternativa interesante, no va a estar la legislación como pronto hasta mediados del próximo año. Bueno, vamos a ver qué repercusión va a tener en todos los sectores. Yo únicamente, y para finalizar, ahí se lo lanzo al debate, nos preocupa esta prioridad en las normativas que ha anunciado, especialmente referidas al Pacto Verde que ha anunciado la Comisión, al menos nos preocupan en la Comisión de Agricultura. y ya iremos viendo qué medidas se pueden adoptar. Sí decir que es muy importante para los agricultores el estar asociados para todos los procesos, para la digitalización, para los servicios y para la comercialización. Asociados en cooperativas. Yo creo en la fórmula cooperativa, en la economía social. Creo que es un instrumento elemental y esencial para los agricultores pequeños, medianos, incluso grandes, agrupados en cooperativas. Nosotros en mi región y en mi país hay un gran modelo cooperativo, en unos sectores más que en otros, pero por ejemplo, ha salvado en muchas ocasiones las crisis del aceite de oliva el estar cooperativizado el sector. Así que animo a las cooperativas agrarias, a los agricultores, a que estén asociados para cualquier proceso, para la digitalización necesaria, que no es necesario para el futuro, para el presente, para la comercialización y para los servicios y los cambios que nos va demandando la sociedad y las propuestas legislativas europeas o nacionales. Así que termino como empecé, felicitándoles a ustedes. Ahí les dejo algunas cuestiones de debate y desde luego felicitarles por ese gran proyecto que nos tiene que ayudar a la parte, los legisladores, pero sobre todo al sector, a tener instrumentos suficientes para cumplir esas obligaciones de la lucha contra el cambio climático. Los agricultores quieren estar en esa lucha contra el cambio climático. No se puede hacer política de espalda a los agricultores. O la hacemos con ellos o no se podrá realizar. Por tanto, yo animo a que estos proyectos y estos resultados nos estén ayudando a todos, a los agricultores, a la sociedad, a los legisladores, a que podamos alcanzar esos cambios y que nuestra agricultura tenga futuro sostenible y sea competitiva. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Aguilera. I think that, well, together with your colleagues, Mr. De Castro, Mrs. Piraki, you have all touched upon very crucial aspects of the question that we deal with today. It's about balance, adaptation, resilience, solutions that need to be offered to the farmers. We have done our best in the project, within the project's scope. You will soon see the outcomes that we have achieved, but of course, there is a long path towards the sustainable transition, and we need further support on this. Thank you very much for being with us today. Now I would like to hand over to Mr. Humberto Delgado Rosa, who is Director in charge of biodiversity in DG Environment. Mr. Delgado Rosa, a warm thank you on behalf of the partners of the LIFE GAIA Sense project, not only for honoring us with your presence today, but also for supporting our activities through the LIFE program, the EU's funding instrument for the environment and climate action that, by the way, is turning 30 on May 21st. Well, in this sense, and as a high-level representative of DG Envy, that was the funding entity of our project, may I consider you one of ours? You have the floor.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I hope you hear me well.
I think that you need to switch on your microphone. Personally, I cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
You hear me?
Okay, good. Please
you can
go
hear
on,
me.
please.
Okay. I was first thanking you very much for the invitation, and especially for considering me one of yours, because indeed I'm really proud to see the LIFE program, which is the Climate, Environment and Energy program of the Commission, working towards helping farmers in this path to sustainability, of which, of course, smart farming is one of the tools. And indeed, we need all the tools we can get towards ensuring long-term food security, long-term environmental security, because indeed, we won't get to sustainability without this fundamental layer of the services that ecosystems and the biosphere provides us, the ones that allow an economy and a society to thrive. But with this said, and going to the topic of the Life Gaia Sense, allow me first a couple of distinctions. By one side, there are, let's say, two trends within technology as applied to farming. I would say by one side, we see digitalization of current land management approaches, such as complementing existing machines and technologies with digital applications, such as, let's say, GPS supporting the steering of a machine or sensors applied to agriculture machinery. But there are also interesting developments of fully new technologies, such as drones or field robots, that can be decoupled from the current machines and technologies. And another distinction is I look at precision farming as a location differentiated, targeted and variable application of agricultural inputs and resources, be it water, seeds, plants, fertilizers, pesticides, to a certain field or section, while smart farming seems to me to include precision farming, but going beyond, because it can expand the focus from area and sub-area specific management to the full optimization of cropping systems and farm management. So very welcome developments we are seeing. On the potential benefits, they are relatively easy to grasp, and the general reduced use of fertilizers and pesticides. So in general, a reduction of pollution, be it of air, water or soil. There's also the reduction of emissions, for instance, during application, but also from applying it to animal husbandry directly. Additionally to the reduction, there's also this issue of precise use of fertilizers. For instance, the ability to automatically stop the application in certain parts of the field, if they are near the water body or if they are near nests or whatever. And there's also this benefit of reduced soil compaction through field robotics, for instance, that require less heavy machinery and thus we can save the soil, a very important resource, as we can all understand. So smart farming can indeed act as a decision support for farmers that want to contribute to environmental protection without largely or fundamentally changing their current farming model. But it also allows some, at least potentially, targeted wildlife protection. For instance, one can imagine the GPS marking or monitoring of nests before mowing to protect these nests. It also allows the monitoring and tracking of environmental data on a large scale, etc. But there are also risks and challenges, and we would also like to refer to them. For instance, we could see the risk of the efficiency gains through precision and automation being not really used to reduce the inputs, but to increase the output, while we should actually target both reducing inputs and increasing outputs. There's also the risk that was referred before, which these new techniques are not necessarily available to a large share of farmers, including small farmers, which are often those that have a lot of potential for increased and targeted protection of biodiversity. I referred the potential of less soil compaction, but of course, if we use smart farming to conduct even larger and heavier agricultural machinery, this would become a risk rather than a benefit. But now, on the point I follow more closely, which is the preservation of biodiversity and ecosystems, for now, it's not usually a primary goal of smart farming. It's more, let's say, a possible side effect. So it's also important to apply more studies to the actual benefits of these technologies for biodiversity, also to show and demonstrate the observed effects. There's a point I would also refer as a risk, which is, first, of course, these higher investment costs that smart farming may require from technology. It could also require higher outputs or yields, so there could be a rebound effect. But I would also pay some attention to the risks of a higher demand of energy and resources from technology, especially in this context where the scarcity of some resources is coming in. So getting to my final intervention. On the needs, I would say it's useful to include directly biodiversity protection in the development of digitalized techniques and applications. Precision farming can match together with also agroecological approaches. There's no divide between agroecological approaches and technological approaches. They can be linked together. And also focusing on nature-based solutions and how they can be digitally supported. I would find this very virtuous. We do need some further research on the actual and not just potential benefits of precision farming and smart farming. Finally, I would say, let's just avoid thinking about silver bullets. Precision farming and smart farming is, of course, a very important tool in the toolkit of the farmers that want to go towards sustainability. But there are many others that can be linked or at least considered together, including organic farming, regenerative agriculture, permaculture, carbon farming and climate smart agriculture, the protection and restoration of certain ecosystems such as wetlands or peatlands, together with appropriate agricultural management and whatever other agroecological approaches. So I'm really pleased to see this LIFE GAIA Sense advancing, delivering good results and good prospects. And I couldn't agree more with what our MEP said. We need to do this pathway of sustainability with the farmers. They are our stewards of the land, and that's with them that we'll get to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this initial contribution. I'm saying this because you will stay with us until the end of the meeting, so we will have the opportunity to further exchange during the Q&A session. Well, I don't know from where to start in order to comment a bit on what you have said. I'm positively surprised to see that you are a fine expert of smart farming. You mentioned something very important for our approach too, that smart farming englobes precision farming. It's a holistic approach on decision making in the farm. And as you rightly said, smart farming is not a panacea. I mean, it cannot find a solution for everything, but as you also said, it is compatible with other practices like agroecology, organic agriculture, etc. What we have tried to do within the LIFE GAIA Sense project is to achieve this balance between productivity and reduction of the impact of the productive activity on the natural resources, which is a target for all European farmers. We all want, as Mrs. Clara Aguilera said before, we all want to achieve this difficult but feasible balance if we have the right tools. So let me now share with you a video on behalf of Mr. Alvaro Amaro, a distinguished member of the Agriculture Committee of the European Parliament from Portugal. Mr. Amaro couldn't join us today due to prior commitments, but had the kindness to record the message that we will listen to right away. After I warmly thank him and his office, as well as our good colleague from Confagri, Mrs. Isabel Basto, for the help in organizing this. May we play the video, please? Sorry to intervene, but there is no sound, at least in the English channel. Still no sound. Just a few minutes of your patience. We're trying to fix this.
presente. Bom dia a todos. Antes de mais, gostaria de agradecer este convite que me foi efetuado e, em particular, à Confagri, na pessoa da Isabel Basto. Infelizmente, por compromissos assumidos e dos quais, entretanto, dei conta, não me é possível estar presente. Mas, nestas formas modernas em vídeo, expresso o meu ponto de vista na convicção de que possa dar alguma ajuda ao bom debate que certamente vai ocorrer neste evento. Cumprimento naturalmente todas e todos os que estão a assistir e, em particular, os meus colegas deputados. Este projeto, LIFE GAIA Sense, tem como pedra angular algo que tenho vindo a defender ao longo do meu mandato como deputado no Parlamento Europeu. Ou seja, que qualquer tomada de decisão deve assentar, tanto quanto possível, em dados, em factos, em informação credível e, naturalmente, na investigação e na ciência. Por isso, é com muita satisfação que vejo projetos como este, que estimulam os agricultores e os produtores a tomar decisões ainda mais acertadas e com maior precisão. O futuro da agricultura europeia e o seu consequente aumento da sustentabilidade deve ter em conta uma abordagem abrangente e não apenas esta ou aquela medida específica. Não podemos ir por caminhos únicos, olhando apenas para limitações e obrigações. Devemos, isso sim, apoiar o conjunto de ferramentas que irão ajudar em todo este processo. Temos que olhar para a sustentabilidade de uma maneira abrangente, apoiando, por um lado, as soluções biológicas capazes de ajudar a produção agrícola, mas, por outro lado, devemos também promover a tecnologia em todas as suas vertentes, desde a mecanização moderna até à agricultura de precisão ou inteligente, aumentando desta forma a eficiência dos fatores de produção e diminuindo, consequentemente, o custo para os produtores, sem reduzirem, naturalmente, a sua produtividade. Este projeto enquadra-se, por isso, na perfeição de como deve ser realizada a promoção da agricultura de precisão. Em Portugal, a sua adoção, principalmente pelos grandes produtores, é verdade, está a progredir fortemente e com resultados extremamente positivos, quer em termos ambientais, quer em termos de poupança de produtos fitofarmacêuticos e fertilizantes, quer em termos de produtividade da terra. Naturalmente que há um grande trabalho a fazer até que produtores de menor dimensão possam ter a mesma possibilidade de utilizar estas ferramentas. O que é certo é que devemos promover as melhores tomadas de decisão com base na informação existente, ao nível das parcelas e sempre, claro está, com base na ciência. Por estas razões, volto a repetir, com muito bons olhos este projeto que cobre as vertentes mais importantes da implementação da agricultura inteligente, desde a recolha de informação ao tratamento dos dados, que para muitos produtores se torna a tarefa mais difícil e, por fim, naturalmente, a decisão que deve ser tomada. Para ser bem-sucedida a implementação da agricultura de precisão, em especial por parte dos pequenos agricultores, é fundamental um sistema de aconselhamento técnico forte e próximo dos agricultores. Esse aconselhamento técnico é, aliás, um ponto que eu acho fundamental e transversal à agricultura, e digo em particular do meu país, onde a idade média dos agricultores, como é sabido, é muito elevada. As cooperativas agrícolas representam neste ponto uma importância fulcral, não só pela proximidade que desempenham junto aos agricultores, mas também pela confiança que os produtores possam ter nas suas organizações. Todos devemos combater o que porventura aqui e ali ainda possa existir de resistência à modernização. São estas soluções integradas que a União Europeia necessita e que eu gostaria muito de ver reforçadas nesta nova política agrícola comum que se inicia em 2023 através dos planos estratégicos de cada um dos países. Aliás, gostaria de referir, a pretexto do nosso país, Portugal, meu país, que na versão do PEPAC apresentada no final do ano pelo Governo, não se encontram referências fortes ao associativismo e ao cooperativismo no setor agrícola. Algo que eu há muitos anos considero fundamental para o bom desenvolvimento do setor. Soluções como as presentes neste projeto devem ser estimuladas e promovidas por toda a União. Só com uma abordagem transversal poderemos alcançar os objetivos do aumento da sustentabilidade ambiental no setor produtivo, sem colocar em causa a produtividade da terra. As estratégias apresentadas pela Comissão no âmbito do Pacto Ecológico Europeu dispõem de uma intenção positiva e importante, mas, tenho que o dizer, sem uma avaliação completa e criteriosa das estratégias do prado ao prato, da biodiversidade, corremos o risco de colocar em causa o abastecimento alimentar na União Europeia. E eu estou convicto que metas fixas e limitações avulsas não são a melhor solução para a agricultura europeia. E é isso que nos mostra a ciência, através dos vários estudos preliminares realizados, onde apontam graves reduções da produtividade e, consequentemente, da produção na União Europeia, se as metas fossem integralmente cumpridas. Por isto mesmo, no meu grupo político, eu próprio, tenho defendido que, sem pormos em causa tais estratégias europeias, devemos, no entanto, dar agora, em particular agora, um ênfase muito grande à nossa soberania alimentar. Se anteriormente já era importante, sejamos sinceros, com a infelicidade desta guerra terrível, tornou-se absolutamente imperioso. Termino por isso agradecendo novamente à organização o convite e uns desejos votos sinceros do maior sucesso para este projeto que é tão importante. Muito, muito obrigado. Bom dia a todos.
Well, again, a big thank you to Mr. Amaro for addressing us this video message full of important points that we will keep for the discussion. Again, the focus on balance, on sustainable, of all the dimensions of sustainability, the need for tools, the focus on small producers, on technical counseling, advisors for farmers, and the role of agri-cooperatives, and of course the CAP. We will have Pierre Bascoul later that will tell us about the tools, the design tools in the next CAP that support digitalization. So now, let's focus on the LIFE GAIA Sense project's scope, objectives, and outcomes by giving the floor to Vasilis Piriotis, our good colleague from Europublic, who is the coordinating entity of the project. Vasilis is head of EU Projects Department in Europublic, and if I may say so, he's the orchestrator of LIFE GAIA Sense as the project coordinator. Vasilis, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Ellie, for your kind words. Allow me to share my screen so as to be able to see all together what we have achieved through the LIFE GAIA Sense project. I would like, first of all, to say it is a great honor for me being here with you today, and a satisfaction at the same time that we have all this interesting intervention, but also to see that so many people have stopped their work and virtually attend this event, since there might be interested in smart farming, in digitization, or they are just trying to find financial viable ways to protect the environment, to support circular economy models, or just to protect the environment. To start with, I would like only just to mention a few introductory things about the project. The complete title of the project is LIFE GAIA Sense: Innovative Smart Farming Services Supporting Circular Economy in Agriculture, since we wanted to make sure to make it really clear right from its title what we would focus on during its implementation. It started 4 years ago, and it is funded by the LIFE program of the European Union, which actually celebrates 30 years of of funding, and we are very proud to be part of it. The budget of the project reaches at almost 3 million euros. The consortium of the project consists of 7 entities from Greece, Spain, and Portugal, including small medium enterprises, cooperatives, and a university. Before presenting you the results of this innovative project, I would like to go a step back for all those people who are not very accustomed with smart farming, to say just a few things, what we mean when we talk about smart farming, as this project demonstrates GAIA Sense as a smart farming solution that aims at the reduction of natural resources consumption, protection of the environment, and promotion of circular economy model. So smart farming is an integrated approach to manage agricultural activity with the use of modern technologies. It is a combination of scientific research and knowledge, data and practical experience in order to support producers in making appropriate decisions relating to the management of their production. Smart farming is actually a production system that utilizes different achievements and means of technology, such as data acquisition technology, agrometeorological stations, sensors, satellite images, and others. It uses specific procedures for decision-making and programmed method of data collection in order to make wiser choices concerning field application. It combines different data and aims at the improvement of the annual productivity, safeguarding at the same time the agricultural income and the farmer's livelihood. In that sense, an integrated smart farming system aims at lower input cost and enhanced yields for each crop. This practically means less fertilization, less sprays, more rational use of water and required energy consumption, and consequently improvement of the final product, since we can achieve better organoleptic characteristics in the final product. All of this, of course, goes through an investment of knowledge that will allow every single producer to better understand the need of his field, to recognize what are the enemies and diseases that could appear in his crop, and to know when the weather is going to get worse, so as to take precautionary measures. Through the adoption of a smart farming system, we also aim at achieving lower environmental footprint and thus achieving compliance with European regulations. Let's not forget that the new CAP orientate farmers and agri-cooperatives towards the adoption of greener production systems and towards establishing a common understanding that we need to further respect and protect the environment. Having mentioned all the above, we come to the innovative technological solution that we used in the framework of the LIFE GAIA Sense project. GAIA Sense is a smart farming solution, a Greek innovation that combines information technologies with agronomic science in a holistic way. It is a complete production management system, receiving and processing data from 4 different dimensions. More precisely, in the framework of the project, we collected and processed data coming directly from the field with the use of agrometeorological station and sensor. These data were combined with satellite images, but also with data that had to do with every single everyday activities in the field, such as irrigation and sprays. All these combined also with data that had to do with monitoring, sampling, and analysis. As you may imagine, we are talking about a great amount of data that had to be combined and further processed. And they were actually analyzed and processed with the valuable help of GAIA Sense scientists and agronomists who were able to better understand the special needs and condition of each pilot, and therefore they were able to provide farmers with smart farming advices. And when we talk about smart farming advices, we mean smart farming irrigation advices to identify the appropriate time and the optimal amount of water for irrigation. We should note at this point that the irrigation advices also take into account the irrigation system which is installed in the field. For example, if we have a dripping system or sprinklers or micro sprinklers, we adapt the advice and the scientific model to that. We also provided crop crop management advices in order to timely inform the producer when, for example, the conditions are such for a possible infestation of an insect, so as to react and save his cultivation. Lastly, but certainly not the least, we also talk about fertilization advices adjusted to the actual needs of the cultivation and the status of the soil regarding nutrients. All this is in order to avoid phenomena of over or under fertilization. Having that said, allow me to introduce you to the LIFE GAIA Sense fully functional smart farming infrastructure. In the framework of the project, we proceeded to the installation of numerous agro-meteorological stations in different terrain and microclimatic conditions, from the northernmost to the southernmost part of Greece, but also in Spain and in Portugal. All these stations and sensors provided useful data for 9 different crops, and more precisely for olives, peaches, cotton, pistachio, potato, industrial tomato, walnut, kiwi, and grapes. These data were critical for the adjustment of the scientific models in the terrain and microclimatic condition of the pilots under study, as it was important to provide smart farming advices, not only to the farmers who own the plots in which the station and sensor were installed, but also to neighboring farmers, so as to disseminate the knowledge and help a broader number of people. The uniqueness of this smart farming model was that it adopted, and the one that we adopted, is the fact that it concerns everyone. For the first time, every single farmer could benefit from it, even if he has few hectares, and in fact, without having to invest a single euro in technological equipment. For the first time, any agricultural advisor could use the 4 dimensions of the system and be informed about different aspects of his client's cultivation. For the first time, the researcher had a tool with which he could draw large-scale data from different agricultural areas and could test the result of his research in a real productive environment. All these 3 are what makes GAIA Sense a unique, what makes GAIA innovative even at the European level. Having that said, allow me also to introduce you to some of the people that are part of the transnational network that has been created and brought together experts, farmers, and agricultural advisors from Spain, Portugal, and Greece. Ioanna, Carlos, Vasiliki, Elpi, Thoma, Bruno, Caterina, Gonzalo, Nico, Leah, Pari, Jose, Amalia, Costa, George, Veronica, Antonio, Padazi, thank you all for joining us in this wonderful journey. All of you have access to an innovative system with valuable agricultural knowledge. All of you share the same understanding that change can be achieved through cooperation, but also a belief that we should all respect the environment and protect the remaining natural resources. Sorry for being a bit emotional. At this point, we should not neglect the fact that we all had to work under extreme difficulties due to COVID-19 pandemic. Nonetheless, we found new ways of communication. We organized collective samplings and monitorings at a regional level. We spent hours and hours of talking, explaining, understanding, and educating each other. Moreover, we came across extreme weather phenomena as a result of the climate change, but also we had to find ways to move from one other area to another, even at times that the transport was not allowed due to COVID-19. We cannot also forget that there were times, many times, that we had to convince our parents or even our neighbors that there is always another way of cultivating, different than the one they used to cultivate over the years. Having said that, I would like Giacomo, can we please have a short video of LIFE GAIA Sense just to share it with our viewers today?
We adopted, we changed, and we thrived. The LIFE GAIA Sense project was designed, submitted for approval, and started being implemented in 2018, co-funded by the LIFE program of the European Union. It concerned the demonstration of GAIA Sense, an innovative smart farming solution aimed at reducing consumption of natural resources spent in agricultural production, in order to protect the environment while supporting circular economy models.
Circular economy in agriculture was already a priority and still remain a priority also in this new working program. So we look at adoption of innovative solutions as well as best practices in order to make the agriculture and farming sector more sustainable, and through the adoption also of more circular economy actions.
Ο στόχος και το όραμα της ΓΕΑ Επιχειρήν είναι να υποστηρίξει ενεργά τους αγρότες και τους συνεταιρισμούς τους στο να υλοποιήσουν ποιοτικά άλματα προς ένα βιώσιμο μοντέλο παραγωγικό, το οποίο ταυτόχρονα θα πρέπει να είναι και ανταγωνιστικό. Και γι' αυτό τον λόγο συμμετέχουμε ενεργά στο έργο LIFE GAIA Sense, στηρίζοντας όλες τις δραστηριότητες του.
Over the past year, we have extended this particularly pioneering project, and we have fully implemented the GAIA Sense in a total of 18 different locations in Greece, Portugal, and Spain. We trained producers, analyzed their crop data, offered them concrete and directly applicable smart farming solutions, and they tried. They took a step ahead and benefited. And we all changed together.
Βρεθήκαμε σήμερα στην Αίγινα με αφορμή την επίσκεψη σε ένα από τα πιλωτικά του LIFE GAIA Sense, προκειμένου να δούμε πώς ο παραγωγός μας υιοθέτησε όλες αυτές τις συμβουλές ευφυούς γεωργίας που το GAIA Sense έχει να προτείνει.
Το σύστημα ευφυούς γεωργίας αφορά την καλλιέργεια της φιστικιάς στην Αίγινα, η οποία είναι μια καλλιέργεια που έχει ξεκινήσει εδώ και 100 χρόνια. Οι παραγωγοί που ασχολούνται είναι γύρω στις 500 οικογένειες. Για να είμαστε ειλικρινείς, κάθε οικογένεια έχει και λίγες ή έως πολλές φιστικές στην Αίγινα. Έτσι το ενδιαφέρον για την καλλιέργεια είναι μεγάλο και η αγάπη για αυτό το δέντρο και για αυτή την καλλιέργεια. Ο τρόπος που τις καλλιεργούσαμε ήταν εμπειρικός και παραδοσιακές συμβουλές και μέθοδοι. Τώρα με τη χρήση των μέσων της νέας τεχνολογίας θα είναι πολύ καλύτερη τα αποτελέσματα. Το έχουμε δοκιμάσει άλλωστε και είναι πολύ αναγκαίο να τα χρησιμοποιήσουμε αυτές τις δυνατότητες που μας δίνει η τεχνολογία και το πρόγραμμα του LIFE GAIA Sense.
Through LIFE GAIA Sense, we created a network that brought together producers, agronomists, and experts from Greece, Spain, and Portugal. Common experiences, similar difficulties, different microclimatic conditions, and level of familiarity with technology required specific solutions for each case.
From this year, we have received many advices and also many valuable data about how to use properly the insumes, about the water, about fertigation, about fertilizers, and about also pest diseases. That is the main key in our vineyards. And trying to keep this data and to use properly all the insumes to reduce costs and also to make an approach to smart farming.
How easy was it for farmers to change the way they work? What was the role of their commitment to traditional techniques, their habits, and their inherent mistrust of new technologies?
Most of the farmers in Portugal, as well as in other countries in Europe, are aged people, most of them. And sometimes it's difficult to change their mentalities and start to work in a different way.
Θεωρώ όμως ότι τα αποτελέσματα που εξάγονται σιγά σιγά και τα οποία βγαίνουν και φαίνονται στους παραγωγούς αποτελούν την καλύτερη απόδειξη ότι όλο αυτό το πράγμα που συζητάμε για την ευφυή γεωργία έχει μέλλον, έχει αποτελέσματα και εφόσον εφαρμοστεί όπως πρέπει να εφαρμοστεί θα έχει και πολύ καλά αποτελέσματα για τους ίδιους τους παραγωγούς.
Εγώ το βλέπω όχι περισσότερο στο να έχουμε εξοικονόμηση χρημάτων, αλλά τα χρήματα που χρησιμοποιούμε να έχουν αποτέλεσμα. Τώρα με τη στοχευμένη χρήση λιπασμάτων, φυτοφαρμάκων, άρδευσης, Τα αποτελέσματα δείξαν ότι είναι πολύ καλύτερα. Ήταν θετικά, είναι κάτι το οποίο θα το συστήσω και στους άλλους παραγωγούς, οι οποίοι το παρακολουθούν και θα έχουμε θετικά αποτελέσματα και θέλουμε να το συνεχίσουμε το έργο.
Ήδη είμαστε σε ευχάριστη θέση να βρισκόμαστε κοντά σε συμφωνία με τους τοπικούς παραγωγούς προκειμένου να συνεχίσει το έργο να υλοποιείται όχι μόνο σε αυτό το χωράφι αλλά και σε πολλά άλλα χωράφια της περιοχής.
We are planning to continue all the duties that we are making these past 4 years. For us it's very important to have this information and to disseminate this information to our viticultors, to our growers, to our farmers that are very worried about the actual situation and trying to keep vineyards the best as possible.
Θεωρούμε ότι μέσα από την ενασχόληση με το πρόγραμμα και όλη τη διαδικασία που συμβαίνει αυτά τα χρόνια που τρέχει το πρόγραμμα, θα έχουμε τη δυνατότητα να εξάγουμε τέτοιου είδους αποτελέσματα και συμπεράσματα τα οποία θα μπορέσουμε να τα εφαρμόσουμε άμεσα στις καλλιέργειες των ροδακίνων, των μήλων κτλ. Που έχουμε στην περιοχή μας, με αποτέλεσμα να μειώσουμε όσο γίνεται περισσότερο το κόστος παραγωγής, το οποίο όλοι ξέρουμε ότι χρόνο με το χρόνο αυξάνεται πάρα πολύ, και να μπορέσουμε έτσι να βοηθήσουμε όσο περισσότερο γίνεται τον παραγωγό αυτά που μένουν στην τσέπη του να είναι όλο και περισσότερα.
Τέτοια έργα είναι πάρα πολύ σημαντικά στο να μας βοηθήσουν στον κόσμο, όπως έρχεται και αλλάζει στις επόμενες δεκαετίες, να είμαστε δραστήριοι για τις αλλαγές, έτσι ώστε να μην τις βρούμε μπροστά μας και έχουμε προβλήματα.
We must protect the environment. We must guarantee that the farmers spend only the necessary to obtain the productivity with quality and quantity, not spending resources for nothing.
Μέσα σε αυτό το πλαίσιο, έργα όπως το LIFE GAIA Sense βοηθάνε πάρα πολύ στην αλλαγή του τρόπου με τον οποίο γίνεται η γεωργία στην ελληνική γη για να προσαρμοστεί με αυτές τις αλλαγές στον κόσμο μας.
The LIFE GAIA Sense, it's an important project because he innovates, and it's very important because it's the future.
Gaia Sense is a smart farming system that recognizes the needs of the land and proposes specialized solutions. It saves natural resources and brings measurable results. Gaia Sense, a system that appreciates the land, respects the environment, and rewards the producer's hard work.
So, I hope this video was as interesting for you as it was for us while creating it, since it gave us the opportunity to verify that we are part of a greater family, which is now more prone to adopt smart farming services, since we have seen actual results, and these results are the ones that we would like to share with you today. As already mentioned, thanks to the active participation of producers involved and the constant communication with all partners, we managed during the project to provide a series of smart farming advices concerning irrigation, pest management, and fertilization. After the adoption of smart farming advices, we are proud to announce that we could achieve an average 20.23% reduction in irrigation cost when all smart farming advices were applied, which in certain cases reached up to 33.76%. Moreover, we noticed an average 21.89% reduction as far as fertilization cost is concerned, which in certain cases reached also up to 40.84%. Also, we noticed a significant average 33.72 reduction as far as crop management costs are concerned for the targeted insect and diseases that we examined within the framework of the project. And lastly, but certainly not the least, we noticed an important decrease as far as energy consumption cost is concerned, which reached up to an average of 20.18%. As you can understand, the aforementioned reduction resulted to positive socioeconomic impact through safeguarding the agricultural income and the farmer's livelihood, something that can have a spillover effect at local level. At the same time, thanks to the smart farming system, we noticed a considerable decrease of nitrogen use that reached up to 30% depending on the crop, something that results to better air quality and less burden on the environment. In order to further analyze this, a complete life cycle analysis has been undergone. Allow me to share it with you just 4 more graphs before giving you the floor back, Ellie. In the first 2 graphs, which are from 2 different pilot sites with different cultivation, we measured and we compare the environmental impacts from a parcel that it is cultivated without applying smart farming services. The columns in Greek are the reference parcel, and the columns in blue are the treatment parcels. You may notice that in every single impact that we have included in the LCA, such as acidification, water resource depletion, and ionizing radiation, we may notice significant decreases. Similarly, in these 2 last graphs, which also come from the same pilot site as mentioned before, we study the contribution of irrigation and fertilization concerning the environmental impact. Once again, we may notice that there are also significant differences between reference and treatment parcel, something that leads us to the conclusion that the adoption of the smart farming advices could contribute significantly to the preservation of natural resources and protection of the environment. Having that said, I would like to thank you once again for your time. I would like to apologize for being emotional a bit earlier, and I hope that I have provided interesting information for all of you so as to have to continue our fruitful discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vasilis. I think that all the project partners, we are allowed to be a bit emotional today. If I may say so, the human dimension is important for us, not only because of the excellent collaboration that we had within the scope of the GAIA Sense project, but also because of the fact that the human dimension is an essential part inherent in the smart farming approach that we adopted. It is technology with a human face because farmers, advisors, IT specialists, they all work together, as you have showed during your presentation, in order to achieve these results that we shared with you. Thank you very much, Vasilis. Let me now hand over to Pierre Bascou, who is Director in the Sustainability Directorate in DG Agriculture. Pierre, we couldn't be happier for having you with us today, since you are the key person in DG Agri in charge of the policy tools that already help and will help farmers in the future to achieve the green and digital transition. The CAP has been mentioned quite a few times up so far. We look forward to listening to you. You have the floor.
Thank you, Ellie, and good morning, everybody. A bit difficult to speak after such a nice and emotional, video and introduction of the project. But first, I would like to thank you, Ellie, and also Mr. De Castro, for a member of the European Parliament, I think, for your invitation to this final event of the LIFE GAIA Sense project, and for giving me the opportunity to discuss with you about first the contribution of smart farming and digitization to this green and digital transition of our agricultural and food system, but also to discuss about, and this is what you mentioned, Ellie, about, I think, the potential contribution of the Common Agricultural Policy, the CAP, in support of farmers and agri-cooperative in this journey towards resilience and sustainability. The project and the relevance of the project and the value of its results, I think, lie very much in the broader context, I think, in which I think we are living. And some of these elements have already been referred to. a context which is characterized by many uncertainties and crises of very different nature, geopolitical and economic, I think, with the war in Ukraine and its implication on our macroeconomic situation, and also I think on food security concerns. I think sanitary also, I think, with the COVID pandemics, climatic, with the effect of climate change, which are being more and more visible for all of us, and in particular, I think, for the farmers, and also environmental, because with the major biodiversity loss and crisis that we are witnessing. And this context, I think, has led us to commit to a progressive and irreversible transition towards sustainability and resilience, and this in the framework, I think, of a new growth strategy of the EU, I think the Green Deal, and its translation, I think, for the food system, I think the Farm to Fork strategy. We clearly need to change how we produce. We clearly need to change, I think, how we consume. And at farm level, I think, this means that we need to produce more, I think, with less, and we need to produce better. And this project, I think the Gaia Sense project, I think, provides a very clear demonstration of the potential of smart farming in supporting this policy and societal also ambition by enhancing at the same time production efficiency, quality improvement, and also sustainability, and in particular, its environmental dimension. This project shows that the use of digital technologies, such as Internet of Things, such as big data and analytics, such as artificial intelligence and machine learning, can all support a more sustainable and efficient use of natural resources and chemical inputs, such as pesticide, while, and I think for me this is important also, while maintaining or even increasing agricultural productivity. And at a time, unfortunately, where economic and environmental needs and objectives are often opposed, this project brings a clear and encouraging demonstration that the transition can and should be sought and achieved in a balanced manner, relying, I think, on the three pillars of sustainability: economic, social, and environmental. And I would like to say that what I find, I think, particularly interesting in this project is a capacity to put together, and it was very well demonstrated in this video, to put together and valorize data and information which are gathered, I think, from the field through sensors, from the satellites, from the scientists, and the farmers and agro-cooperatives themselves. Thus, I think, creating a kind of joint value added, building trust across, I think, all these actors, and also promoting a change of mindset. And I think this is very important. And I would like to thank, Vasilis, I think, for bringing a face, I think, a human side, I think, to the project, and to bring, I think, to our knowledge also, I think, many, I think, of the participants, I think, to this project. This is very important, because we should not forget that, farmers are at the same time dependent from natural resources, but also particularly affected by the environmental degradation of these resources and by climate change. And the results which have been presented, I think, show very well, I think, a very significant reduction in the use of water, in the use of nitrogen, in the use of pesticide, this without affecting too much productivity levels. And these results do offer, a positive and encouraging perspective, in particular, and I would like to underline that, I think in particular in regions and for production sectors of the EU, which are already heavily affected by climate change, and this is myself and biased, I think I would say, but are often less studied by the the traditional sectors in more central regions or more central sectors, I think, in Europe. So in brief, in my view, smart farming represents a promising avenue for ensuring and supporting the transition towards sustainability and resilience. Transition that is the only path for us if we want to ensure food security in the EU and beyond, I think, in the longer term. But development of smart farming and of other types of production systems that can bring us towards, sustainability and resilience and competitiveness, development of smart farming needs to be supported if we are to achieve, I think, this balance and just green and digital transition. And in this endeavor, the CAP will be the main public policy in support of farmers and of agri-cooperatives. And this support can be foreseen on the basis of 4 key elements. First, I think on the basis of the implementation of a new and more effective delivery model that offers more flexibility to member states to better take account, I think, of local condition and needs. And this is particularly important, I think, for the development of such innovative production system like smart farming that need to be calibrated and tailored, I think, to regional specificities and characteristics. Second element is that it needs to be the CAP can offer financial support through, I think, the new green architecture and is reinforced in the policy toolbox in support, I think, of sustainable practices. And this through either, I think, the granting of financial support through eco schemes in the first pillar for the undertaking of specific practices, but also by combining this with the existing instruments in the second pillar. And there I would like in particular to refer to the support, I think, for investment, because we have seen in this video and in the introduction, I think, by many speakers that I think we are talking about, digital tools and applications that need, significant investment. Support also for cooperation between, all the different actors, farmers, cooperatives, scientists, advisors, public authorities. Also support for training, for having access to advisory services, or support, I think, simply, I think, to train, I think, the advisors. The third element I would like to refer to, and that for which I think the CAP will be very important, is the specific role of research and innovation and the possibility given, I think, by EU funds, either under the CAP or Horizon Europe, I think, to promote, I think, the use of research and innovation, and this at the service and at the benefit, I think, of the farming community. The CAP, for instance, can support, I think, the sharing of knowledge and the provision of advisory services through operational groups within, I think, what we call the AKIS, I think, the Agricultural Knowledge Innovation Systems, in order to optimize, I think, the use of all these new technologies, robotics, digitization, all the new technologies, I think, for the benefit of the primary sector. And the fourth element, which is important and for which I think the CAP will have a critical, contribution, is a need, I think, to improve the economic viability and competitiveness of the farm sector. This is absolutely essential if we want, I think, farmers to be able to increase, I think, their ability to adjust and to operate, I think, such a transition towards sustainability and resilience over the medium term. So to conclude, I would like to thank the organizers, Eli, Vasilis that we have seen, but also all the participants, I think, to the project that provides, in my view, a very inspiring and encouraging demonstration of the potential of smart farming for this green and digital transition of our agriculture and food system, which is so badly needed. And I do believe that I think the project shows that when farmers, when cooperatives, advisors, scientists, and also public authorities, I think through supportive policies, work all together, I do believe that we can succeed in achieving the necessary transition towards sustainability, towards resilience, and towards competitiveness of our farm sector in the EU. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for the project and for participating to this session this morning.
The pleasure is ours. Pierre, thank you very much on behalf of all the project partners for honoring us with your contribution today. You mentioned many elements that will be valuable for the policy uptake messages for the continuation of this project. These are also important, equally important as the practices that we put in place. You mentioned the tension between economy and environment that can conciliate if we see it in a balanced manner with approaches like the one that we have adopted. You mentioned trust. Trust is a key word, and the change of mindset. And of course, you have presented us the rich array of tools that are put in the that are there for the farmers within the CAP in order to support the green and digital transition. So thank you very much. And now let's look into what the EU farming community has to say on all this. We have the pleasure to have with us our dear colleague Daniel Azevedo, Director in charge of Commodities, Trade and Technology in Copa Cogeca. Let me just mention before I give Daniel the floor that he is, among other, the brain behind Copa Cogeca's task force on agricultural technology and the key person that has helped us coordinate our efforts as EU farmers and agri-cooperatives to promote digitalization in practice, but also at policy level, among other by taking advantage of our experiences within the LIFE GAIA Sense project. Daniel, you have the floor.
Thank you, Elliot, for your kind words, and thank you also for the kind invitation also to MEP Paulo de Castro for this event. It's coming from a family farming background in the north of Portugal, producing olive oil and wine. It is for me a pleasure to share views on such a relevant project as LIFE GAIA Sense. As Ellie mentioned, I've been following with particular attention this project, and I'm happy to be here for the final event and to see these results. And I will certainly help to promote the results of this project because they are extremely relevant for the whole farming community. Just a few words about Copa Cogeca. Copa Cogeca represents European farmers and agri-cooperatives. We are here based in Brussels. And as Ellie mentioned, we have a dedicated task force on agriculture technology in order to promote the digitization, but also the most importantly, access to a wide range of technology by farmers. Technologies that be improved safe, technologies that be improved cost effective, and that can help to deliver value for farmers. So in terms of context, as Mr. Bascu was mentioning, the Common Agriculture Policy in fact has enabled the most integrated single market in Europe, and this has also created or helped to set high standards for our European farmers in terms of food safety, environment, animal health and welfare, and others. And the EU farming community, it is committed and proud of this EU model production. And we want to help on the transition to a more sustainable agri-food chain. The CAP, as mentioned by a previous speaker, already has some support in terms of acquiring precision agriculture. But there is also other pieces of regulation that are now having an impact on the European farmer. And in the framework of the Green Deal, there are like the farm to fork, the biodiversity strategy. These are important parts of the legislation that will have any huge impact on farming. And as European farmers, we are committed to the implementation of the Paris Agreement and to limit the world's temperature to increase to 1.5 degrees. While not endangering food security, there are no climate deniers among the European farming community. We understand its impact and we have to deal with it every day. And the other important part is the digital single market, with the publication of the Data Act that is relatively in line with the expectations of European farmers. We have, before the single act, the digital act, we have already published a code of conduct agricultural data sharing, pushing forward some of the key principles in order to create trust and transparency within the agri-food chain, because data will be more and more shared along the food chain, and it is key that farmers have access to the data, but they are also able to benefit from the value that is created. It is within this context, it is clear that all ambitious targets set at EU level will require a continuous investment from farmers in agri-cooperatives in order to achieve them. And several studies on the farm to fork done by multiple sources, including the GRC, the Wageningen University, they show that the changes are going to have an impact in farmers' income and margins, in the competitiveness of EU agriculture, increasing imports, decreasing our exports. It will have an impact on food security and can lead to carbon leakage of some of the benefits that we to the leakage of some of the benefits that we could achieve. And we are doing this in the period of actually two crises, increasing of the Russian and Ukrainian war and increasing cost of production, and also the climate change. And in these aspects, it's very relevant to mention that at this stage, there is no clear commitment from the Commission on, for example, doing a comprehensive impact assessment on Green Deal, or to provide the necessary tools to achieve ambitious targets. We see some developments in terms of digital, but we would like to see more in the framework of new technologies. So, for example, the new genomic technologies, or to improve the coverage of broadband in rural areas, CBAM or carbon markets. So a key question is how can the Commission enable our investment on the modernization and sustainability of your agriculture while ensuring the consistency also with other policies? So from our perspective, all sectors must be able to contribute to sustainability, even including those in remote regions, like, for example, in the south of Greece or in Portugal, where they are facing tremendous challenges, not because they are far away from certain areas, because they have limited resources, or because they have a tradition or difficult agronomic conditions, and they must be all enabled to contribute to the sustainability. From our perspective, the digital revolution represents an unprecedented opportunity to create value. And some of the areas where we see it to optimize the use of resources, and I think the results that we have just seen with the improve of nitrogen use, the reduction of water consumption, increase of air quality, these are clear contributions that the digital technologies, that a project like LIFE GAIA Sense has shown. Improving the functioning of food chain, for example, improving the transparency within the agri-food chain. It is a value that can be generated by implementing technologies. Finding new markets could be, for example, someone working on a remote area that needs to bring their cattle to a market and sell it, but because of the cost of transport, it will be much better to do it from a digital way, where it could save some of their transport costs. But also something that most of the times we forget is how to improve the life conditions of farmers and their families. How can digital technologies do that? In the context of the Common Agriculture Policy, the digital technology can actually enable for better compliance with the objectives and with the requirements that the farmers can have to apply. They can enable online applications for payments, provide early warning, simplify official controls. So we see some value that could come from this. But most important, as the Gaia Sense has shown, you can give farmers a larger maneuver to take good farming decisions. And I would like to underline as well the positive impact by engaging agri-cooperatives in this exercise, because they are a really central role on the diffusion of knowledge and innovation-based approaches, but also to advise the farmers and to provide them with further tools. So as a conclusion, a technology must provide clear benefits for the farmer. And the LIFE GAIA Sense shows how it can actually deliver the good value for farmers, but at the same time reducing the impact of agricultural production on natural resources. So what do we need from the European policies? Let's not forget that it's not the technology that will drive the decision of the farmer. It will be the strategy, the real driver for technology and digital transformation, and all the policies they need to bring together. So we have seen with Gaia Sense that decision-making systems are extremely important to enable farmers to take good decisions, to receive a good advice. And we need to integrate also artificial intelligence. In terms of transparency and trust on data sharing, it is very, very important. I mentioned already the Code of Conduct on Agricultural Data Sharing, bringing some principles to improve the transparency and the trust along the food chain while sharing data, because it is important to share the data, and that will be, and create value with that data, but then we must ensure that the farmers will have benefit from it, that they will have access, and they will have the condition to provide access to their data to those operators that they trust. In terms of infrastructure, to improve connectivity, interoperability, but also to improve the coverage of broadband across rural areas. Very important digital skills and jobs, and how to help on advisory and training. And these can be done taking advantage of some of the EU schemes. Access to investment, but also implementing innovation. Now, it is important to set up an innovative, friendly regulatory framework. In this case, for example, how to use drones for spraying very specifically and are very located in certain areas. how to enable farmers to have access to NGTs. And last but not least, how to ensure a fair, transparent, and balanced agri-food chain. So it is important that some of the practices will be regulated to make sure that the farmers will continue to have a bargaining power. Now, in terms of the way forward, it is clear that the current regulatory framework does not foresee the cumulative crisis like COVID, the Russian-Ukraine conflict, and the food security remains strategic and is more and more relevant in the European Union. And agriculture can strengthen our strategic autonomy while continuing making progress on sustainability. Now, we do support the objectives of making a new of the Green Deal, but we must have the tools to continue producing in a sustainable way and maintaining sufficient output. As I mentioned before, we need to be given the tools to allow to achieve these ambitious objectives while not reducing our production. And we believe that smart farming can contribute to the transition to a more sustainable agriculture, taking into account a balanced approach by bringing together the three pillars. So we stand ready to contribute to the legislative debate with the aim to ensure that EU agriculture is sustainable, innovative, and competitive, guaranteeing food security to 500 million people for Europe. Thank you very much, and congratulations to the Gaia Sense project. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel, for sharing all these thoughts, concerns, but also suggestions with us on how we can go forward with the green and digital transition. Now, last but not least, I would like to invite Yves Madre to take the floor. Yves Madre is the president of Farm Europe. I first need to thank him for the valuable support in organizing today's event, but also, dear Yves, for the overall collaboration this last year, since together with you and with all the colleagues in Farm Europe, we have been consistently pushing for more knowledge, more innovation, more digitalization in European agriculture with concrete use cases as the LIFE GAIA Sense case, but also with good arguments. If you have the floor.
Thank you, Ellie. Thank you very much. First, I will have to share my screen. Sorry, you see my son at the same time, but it works. Thank you again, Ellie, for this very, very kind invitation, and thank you to Paolo as well. The project, the LIFE GAIA Sense project, and the results that are presented by Vasilis, I think are very, very, I would say, extremely important. Indeed, today, we have two challenges to overcome at the same time, and Pierre mentioned them. First, the one of food security, and honestly, the Ukrainian crisis has put these challenges back on the political agenda. Some may have believed that it can be taken for granted. Clearly, it has never been the case. Food security is a matter of answering to our needs, but not only to our needs. The European Union, I think, has a huge responsibility when it comes to global markets and the ability to answer to the demands of notably North African and African neighbors. Just to have in mind, if I may, that population will double in Africa between now and 2050, which means that Africa would have to double its production of cereals, triple its production of plant proteins, and quadruple the production of meat. So clearly, we have a challenge, a very important one of food security, and the European Union has a huge responsibility in producing, in meeting, and in being able to answer this challenge. The second challenge, but I should say that we have two first challenges. The The second one is, of course, fighting climate change and taking care of the environment. At the same time, of course, and let's be clear, and I think we all agree today with that, the ultimate goals of the European Green Deal and the Farm to Fork strategy should be reached. No doubt, no discussion. But the question is, how can we reach them? This is the point. The main Commission's proposal related to the Farm to Fork strategy are very well known, so no need to underline them. And the potential impact of these proposals have been clearly analyzed as well by scientists, by the Commission itself. And to be summarized, this is a risk of decrease of European production by 15%, an increase of food price for consumers, and the necessity to increase our imports, and especially, for instance, increase our imports of proteins. And when it comes to the environment, because this is much important, at the end of the day, there is no impact on global environment if no harm. So what can be done? Which pathways to comply with Green Deal objectives, with the objective of producing more and of having more profitable European agricultural sectors. And we believe in Farm Europe that there are three main levels: carbon farming, genetics, and it has been mentioned earlier, and notably new genomic techniques, and precision and digital farming techniques. And this is why the project you manage is so important. Using digital is, I think, imperative. Existing solutions are available. We shouldn't wait, for sure. And your project is a clear demonstration. Vasilis showed some examples, so I will be very, very brief when it comes to the reduction of water. For instance, the reduction of the use of inputs while increasing production and reducing cost. At the same time, this is the example of wheat. You mentioned grapes, so no need to say anything more when it's come to this, or live, and we worked all together on that. Edith, you underlined that. But the fact is that today, between 70 to 80% of agricultural equipment is equipped with components that can be linked to digital tools. Fine, nice, but only 20%, 25% of farms are using them. So we have to overcome farmers' barriers to adopt these technologies. Indeed, and to overcome, the cost, indeed, the difficulties when it comes to infrastructure, the standards issue, which was mentioned earlier, the need to raise knowledge and expertise of farmers, and the need to help them. And I do understand that the project you manage and the way you act every day on day-to-day basis is indeed to be just close to farmers and to make sure that they will be able to understand the use and how it could be used, and why it has to be used. And finally, the previous speaker underlined that the management of data, of course, of digital agriculture. But as a conclusion, I do believe that first, digital farming is indeed one, and maybe the first of the answers that can boost both the economic performance and the environmental performance of farms. But this option, if we could say that this is an option because it has to be done, is not only for large farms, but for all farms. smaller farms as well. This is crystal clear, and I think that the project manager demonstrates that clearly as well. And at the end, a specific European plan on investment in agriculture in order to make sure that this transition will occur. And this plan, we work on that, and we do believe that it's quite urgent, not a plan within 10 years' time. Now, we need a plan of at least 30 billion euros to be decided, to be supported by the European Union, by CAP, but not only by CAP, because we all know that the budget of the CAP is not extending, quite the opposite. And we need the decision to be taken very soon to give us a clear sign, a very concrete sign. And this is imperative if you want to succeed in, at the same time, achieving food security and the challenge linked to environment and climate change. And we have no solution but to succeed in. Thank you very much. And thank you. And honestly, congratulations for all the project and all what you do, not only in this project, but in Gaia and all around Greece and all around the European Union, because I know the good of your actions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yves, for your intervention as well as for your kind words. You mentioned a lot of interesting points, the global challenges, the African dimension that we should keep in mind, of course, but also concrete proposals on how on the way forward, not only within the CIP, but also beyond the CIP. You made a concrete proposal in terms of investments, the need for investments, but also you made another point that will give me an opportunity also to launch the discussion, that for the moment, only a few farms, even though we know that this is the solution, smart farming is a part of the solution, only a few farms in the EU at present use these technologies in their agricultural practices. So we have concluded the part of the speakers' interventions. It's now time for the Q&A. Since we are a bit running out of time, may I make the following suggestion? Well, before I ask one question to all of the speakers that are present, that sums up a bit what has already been said, but also includes questions that we have received on the chat. I will invite, before asking you this last question and giving you an opportunity to take the floor again, I would like to invite our good colleague from Confagri, the Portuguese Confederation of Agricultural Cooperatives and Agricultural Credit, Antonio Baião, who was one key person in the LIFE GAIA Sense project, to take the floor for two minutes. Antonio. Are you here? Are you with us? Well, I don't see Antonio in the speakers. Well, my colleagues will help me if they see him in the list. So let me ask this question, summing up, as I said before, what has been discussed and asked by our participants. Well, I think that we all agree that digitalization is a key driver for balanced sustainability in terms of economy and environment, and able to respond to the big challenges that we face, even in the current juncture. But despite our efforts in different parts of the EU, it seems that we are still at an embryonic stage in terms of adoption. What can we do in order to encourage the swift adoption on behalf of the farming population in order to meet the very ambitious objectives and challenges? What is the role of agri-cooperatives in this? Agri-cooperatives have been mentioned a lot of times, and they are a key part also of the LIFE GAIA Sense project. How can we further help cooperatives? And what about the livestock sector? Unfortunately, it was not part of the LIFE GAIA Sense project. We are working on it internally. You will see things coming up in the future, but the livestock sector is essential. So if our speakers could position also themselves on what we can do also in this sector with digital tools to help breeders achieve sustainability. Let me start by giving again the floor to Mr. Delgado Rosa, and then I will last give the floor to Mr. Paulo De Castro, our host, to sum up all the discussion and to make his concluding remarks. So Mr. Delgado Rosa, you have the floor.
Okay, so a bit as a reaction to several of the issues we heard. The first point I would like to say is on the European Green Deal, because I think it is a very clear commitment on the pathway to sustainability, not only on climate change, on the several twin challenges we have, including biodiversity loss, pollution, and the mismanagement of resources and over exploitation of resources. And I would add that the Green Deal remains the right narrative. It would be a big mistake to divert from it because now we have a war. Let me do a parallel. When the pandemics kicked in, I heard several voices saying, oh, now we must put aside the Green Deal and its deliverables, namely the biodiversity strategy that was in the making. Indeed, we had a bit of delay, but after all, we did get the biodiversity strategy and the Farm to Fork strategy with the right level of ambition. So that's my main point on the Green Deal. And of course, we often heard the Green Deal as such had no impact assessment, or Farm to Fork as such had no impact assessment. Well, we don't do impact assessments of strategies, but we of course do thorough impact assessments of legislative proposals, and we don't go ahead when the benefits do not overcome the costs. So another point I would do is we don't have risks for food security in Europe from the war context. In Europe, we have a food surplus, which is welcome. We have many exports. We have a lot of food waste. We have a lot of obesity. And we have also some tendencies to changing diets, namely towards more plant-based diets, which give many escape valves to risks on food security. And we do have risks for food security if we keep losing productive soil, losing pollinators, losing or overusing water, or indeed losing the ecosystem services that ensure that we have a sustainable food productivity and production in the EU. So in a sense, this tension between the economy and the environment comes up in the short term. In the mid to long term, they converge towards sustainability, because we cannot have an economy and indeed a society without a healthy environment. Finally, more directly on the issue of this project, LIFE GAIA Sense and smart farming. Again, it's a tool, a very promising tool. It should indeed be expanded, but it must be addressed together with several other tools, several of which were referred in this discussion, including carbon farming, but I insist also in more organic farming, other agroecological approaches, landscape features, helping to deliver the ecosystem services that agriculture requires, indeed the Farm to Fork and Green Deal approach overall. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Delgado Rosa. Now I would like to give the floor to Pierre Bascon.
Thank you, Ellie. Thanks a lot. And I would like, I think, to come back to the question, I think, about how we could upscale basically the use of smart farming and the use of this kind of tool in order to improve, I think, both, I think, the production efficiency, but also, I think, the quality and environmental performance. And I think for me, I think it requires first, I think, a kind of, collective approach. In my intervention, I talk about trust, I talked about, change of mindset. We need to raise, I think, awareness about, I think, the potential of the tool, but we need to do that, I think, together. And I think for me, one of the beauty, I think, of this project is to show that when you put, I think, the research and innovation and advisors, at the service, I think, of the farmer, I think, on the ground, and when I think you plug in, I think, the potential of new technologies, I think you can really deliver added value. I think that farmers can understand and enjoy, both on the economic front and on the environmental front. So I think for me, this is a kind of collective approach that we need to develop. And for this, I think there's a significant responsibility also, I think, of the public authorities, because clearly, in order to support that, buying new machineries or tools or application, having access, I think, to satellite information, having access to advisory services, etc., needs, I think, to put together a package of policy instruments coming both, I think, from the CAP, but also, I think, from the research funds, coming also from national funds, because this is important. When we talk about using smart farming, we also talk about the ability of operators on the ground, I think, to have access, I think, to broadband services. This is not the case right now, in all rural areas, I think, in the EU. So I think we need to have, a kind of inclusive and comprehensive, approach to that, and tapping, I think, on the different public policies, I think, that have an interaction, and to really, promote that, at I would say at regional, if not, I think, national level, to really be able, I think, to do a quantitative leap, in this respect. Otherwise, I think we will see, as it is already the case now, but I think, farmers which are, have a privilege because financially they are better off, or because they have, easier access, I think, to these technologies, to engage into this smart farming, and we will see that the others, and I think, will be left behind. So I think for me, this needs to be collective, and this needs to be comprehensive in terms of approach, not only focusing on the CAP, but also looking at other funding possibilities and policy approach. And maybe a last word, I think, on the livestock sector. You concentrated in this project on Mediterranean product. And for me, this is very interesting, because very often, as I said, I think they are not looked after or studied, in great detail. But for the livestock sector, the potential is the same. If you want to, reduce, I think, the use of antimicrobials, if you want to improve the sanitary condition, the animal welfare condition, and also, I think, the emission of methane, etc., and the environmental impact of the livestock sector, we have, I think, the potential exists, I think, through sensors with animals, etc. So I think, in my view, similar benefit, I think, can be achieved also, I think, for the livestock sector. So as a tool, I do believe, as Umberto said, that I think it is a very promising and inspiring, tool. It's not a silver bullet. There's no silver bullet, let's be honest. So I think we need to look at this, I think, in a broader perspective. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pierre. Now, Daniel.
Thank you. I can only agree with Pierre Pascu has just mentioned. Livestock sector, it should also be given the opportunity to contribute to sustainability, and would highly benefit from same kind of project, from the use of smart farming technologies to reduce to optimize resources like use of water or feed, or antimicrobials, but also other inputs. So it is something that would benefit the sector. Now, perhaps also what will be interesting is also to underline the role of cooperatives, as you mentioned in your question. And the cooperatives are quite important, and we have seen the results of their action within our Copa-Cogeca membership. And they're extremely important also to give an opportunity for small farmers, medium-sized farmers, to access the newest technology. We already had the experience of cooperatives providing, for example, access to machinery, because they can be shared between some of the farmers, like the technology that is being implemented here in this project. You can have infrastructure and a proper network connecting their members of the cooperative, getting data, and also the cooperative enabling the monitoring of these data. Where is this data going for? Are the colleagues in the food chain respecting the principles of data sharing by the farmers? And they can increase the leverage of farmers. And it's extremely also important for the analysis of the data that is collected coming from different sources, put it together, have the correct advisory. This is something, improve the logistics. For example, when we are bringing in inputs, it can coordinate the inputs and the storage between the members. This can create value. And so I think the role of the agri-cooperatives is extremely relevant. And I'm looking forward to continue working with with Gaia in this aspect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Now, Yves Madre.
Thank you, Eli. I will not replicate what Pierre said. What I believe is that we have to show to farmers it works, and to other farmers who will be able to embark their colleagues in the journey. And generally speaking, farmers, when it comes to digitalization, they need support clearly. And you mentioned the role of cooperatives. They are very important if we want to succeed in, I do believe. Important when it comes to transfer of knowledge, when it comes to advices, but as well when it comes to investments in common. And just the previous speaker mentioned that during that this is very important. Concerning livestock, the livestock sector, benefits of digitalization is true as well. So we are running a bit late. So I would just say, mention that we, as Farm Europe, we did a full study when it comes to digitalization on the livestock sectors. So the study is on the website. So no need to continue just that. But at the end of the day, the result is yes, indeed. It is very important, very needed as well for the livestock sector and very beneficial. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Yves. Now, Vasilis, and Vasilis, if I may also ask you to answer a question that we received, if the fisheries sector was included in the LIFE GAIA Sense project.
Thank you very much, Ellie. In the framework of the project, we had, as already mentioned, 9 different cultivations and 9 cultivations. So, Aliyah, I'm not sure
Fisheries
about
that.
Sorry about that. Fisheries was not within the framework, was not examined within the framework of the project. However, there are many different cultivations that we examine in the framework of GAIA Sense. We are talking for about more than 20 different cultivations that are not only cultivation of the Mediterranean land, let's say, and we also examine, this is something that we have studied in the business and marketing plan. We are also trying to see what is the next step. The next step should be the green houses, and this is something that we have already started examining. We are installing Geatrons, the agrometeorological stations that we also used in LIFE GAIA Sense, and we believe that in the following years we will have many different domains to present you, maybe within the framework of another project or in another occasion.
Hopefully, yes. Well, the key message is that we will keep on working on this independently of the finalization of the project. Well, our host, Mr. Paulo de Castro, would like to excuse himself. He had to leave the meeting urgently. He salutes you all. So I will take the responsibility to conclude the meeting. Well, I think that we had a quite lively and constructive debate today. And I hope that despite of the sometimes diverging perspectives, we have managed to agree and to convey all together the message that approaches based on knowledge and innovation and technology, like the one that we have tried to adopt within the LIFE GAIA Sense project, are key to conciliate both economic and environmental objectives and to achieve sustainability in a comprehensive way. But of course, there is a lot of work to do, and it is not the silver bullet. We need to work in a comprehensive manner in all the sectors, as it has been rightly said. With this, I would like to thank warmly our host, Mr. Paulo de Castro, and all the distinguished speakers that have honored us with their presence today. I would like to thank our partners from Farm Europe, and especially Eve Madra, Antonella Rossetti, and Giacomo Gualla for the valuable support in organizing this event. Of course, the good colleagues and partners of the project and the colleagues in Neuropublic and in GEA Epichirin, as well as Beacon Communication, Mrs. Fontana and her excellent team of interpreters. A last piece of information, the video of the meeting and the presentations will be available on the LIFE GAIA Sense website and social media very soon, as well as on the project's partners website and social media. Stay tuned. Our smart farming efforts are ongoing. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you to all the participants. We had a very high level of participation today. Thank you very much for staying with us. See you soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ellie, for your monitoring of today's